Hello, uh, what's your name? Whitey Kern? Am I saying it right? Whitey Kern or Witty Kern? The first way or the second way? Hard eye or soft eye? And hello, Kaylee. Long time no speak. I'm using a 07 fine liner on the figure here because he's a little bit more in the foreground than some of this other stuff in the background. And so I did that with like a 005 and maybe some 03s, but mainly 005s. So that way those lines don't interfere with the figure and kind of pop him out into the foreground. For this one here, I'll probably do some with a 010 to further do that. Hello, Lucas, and thank you. I appreciate that. So I do comic books, but this is going to be part of a card set. Can you guys hear the music? I know that the sound has been muting lately. I tried something different. I tried like typing in music that can play into YouTube. Explain this card, but maybe we should. I guess I could give the rundown. This is part of the video where I give the rundown, the little introduction. Okay, still no music. That's unfortunate. But what was I saying? The introductions. So I have a free to read comic series. I like to start with that one. Free to read comic series on the Graveyard Comics Facebook page or on my TikTok channel. In the playlist called Nadir Archives. So Nadir Archives is the name of that free to read anthology series. Hello, Stog, and thank you. I'm glad you appreciate that you like it. What is wrong with me today? I missed yesterday's live, and I haven't gone live in like a week. So I'm like rusty, rusty at the lives. But I also have some books on Amazon that are obviously not free to read if they're on Amazon, but uh, oh, I still have to put one of them as Kindle. But the Dead Liberty books are also available on Kindle. They're a little bit cheaper on Kindle. Um, and Blood Hunt, if I recommend one book, read Blood Hunt because you could just buy that one and be good. I need to put that one as a Kindle as well. I gotta do that at some point. But that's in the same universe as the Dead Liberty series. And the Dead Liberty series is not in the same universe as the free to read series Nadir Archive. So you don't need to buy those books to understand what's happening in the free to read series. The medieval stuff is also its own universe as well. So Dead Liberty, I call that the universal timeline. Nadir, I call the cosmic timeline, and the medieval series, Stain of the Forgotten, I call that the primordial timeline. I don't expect anyone to memorize all the different timeline names. Just know that there are different timelines. So you're not going to say, be in this comic, obviously, and see the sci-fi guys from Nadir. You're not going to see superheroes from Dead Liberty in Nadir. You're not going to see knights from Stain of the Forgotten in Dead Liberty. Well, not these knights anyway. Hello, the real Spider-Man webs. So we're picking up inks where I left off last time. I just started the warg's face here, and then I put in the rest at work and the backgrounds. So now we're just getting the knights in here. Not in the same timeline. So what I was talking about being in the same timeline is my Dead Liberty series and Blood Hunt are in the same timeline, universal timeline. Nadir, all those things in Nadir are not in the same timeline as Dead Liberty. I think the medieval one is the easiest to not get confused. If they have guns, they don't belong in this timeline. If it's a superhero, obviously it doesn't belong in this timeline. So you're not going to get confused reading my books and be like, where's the Liberator? Well, he's not here. He's in another dimension. He's in the Dead Liberty series. To make it a little more visual, here are some of the cards available on the my Patreon that people get in the $10 tier, and they pick which one, and I'll remake it. So here's the Liberator. He's from Dead Liberty. So these are other characters from Dead Liberty. Hold on, let me just click this button here. So just so you get an idea of the kind of vibe, that's Blood Hunt. So he's in the same universe as Dead Liberty, but he's got his own series. It's a companion series. So there's Blood Hunt. There's the Harbinger. He's one of the characters from Dead Liberty. And I just added this new one of him with his helmet. So that's why it's not in his sleeve yet. And one of my patrons, shout out to Minion, is getting that one. So these are all characters from Dead Liberty. And then this is the Nadir series. So these guys are not in the same universe as these guys. So this takes place in a more futuristic, even more futuristic. Well, this takes place in the year 2083. This takes place in the years like 2200s in another dimension. So they got like space travel and stuff in this comic. There's no space travel in this series. But here are some of the soldier types from Nadir. And thank you, Stoggy. I appreciate that. We also have a Discord channel I'd like to mention where you can get updates on where I go live, whether it's TikTok or Instagram, when I go live, which is typically 12 a.m. Eastern time. I was a little late today because I was working on I try to squeeze in some pencils on a cover for Dynamite Comics. I could probably show that to you since I have it right here. And also you can post your own artwork in the general art channel and get updates on my projects. and other announcements. And also, we just have the coolest people on Discord. So, good connections and community. So those are, I don't know if you can see the vibe difference between these guys, or maybe you're like, oh, they look like they belong in the same universe. I hope not, but I would imagine that some people could confuse them. So if they're in like if they have like space stuff, then it's definitely not in the delivery universe. And then the medieval stuff, again, these guys are not in the same universe as those. But here are some of the cards from the medieval comic Stain of the Forgotten. Hello, Caramel Girl. Did I say hello? I still gotta add more lizard people. I want to have another lizard person design because they have a lot of different variations. So I need to do that at some point. So I'm wrapping up some work on my sketch cards with Dynamite Comics on their next uh, sketch card project. I still got to sign them, but I like to do that at the end. So here I colored these. I might color the backgrounds. I might color the backgrounds on these. Or I don't know if I should leave them white because the scene it's white. Hmm, not sure. We'll see. And then I have to color all these. So I got some ways to go. Hopefully after the live, maybe I'll finish coloring all the little planes. Um, and where's that Red Sonja cover? I just saw it. Oh, here. So here's the Red Sonja cover I was doing before the live, like moments before. I did this in like 10 or 15 minutes. This you can barely see the pencils on this. Like without this light here, I could barely see. That's why yeah, that's what I'm working with. Um so I have to do like 10 of these with the red cover. And I was just like, how the hell am I supposed to color these things? And so it kind of is pushing me beyond my limits a little bit. I'm kind of um I recently been studying some new shading techniques and stuff like that, and more so like being able to put in more shadows. I've been really looking at Frank Frazetta's artwork. So coincidentally, then I'm ending up working on Red Sonja, and I have to do 15 covers of Red Sonja. But 5 of those covers will be on, white covers, but 10 of them are going to be in this red. So I was kind of thinking like maybe I'll use acrylic markers this time and try to see if I can kind of work with simple shapes and shadows instead of drawing the whole character. Not because I'm lazy, but because I like it just I can't work on these covers on but you know, we'll see. Maybe who knows? Maybe I unlock a new thing that people like to associate with me. I don't know. But this is the most I've ever gotten of one character. I've worked on Red Sonja sketch cards before as my second project with Dynamite. So it's nice to return to Red Sonja, and I feel like I've improved a lot from going back to her. So I'm really kind of excited, if I'm honest, because she's also like the perfect character to test out like these Frank Frazetta-esque shadows that I want to play around with. If you guys want, I could show the pencils for the drafts that for the other covers I've just did before I came on the lives. Before I came on the live today, I did them pretty quick. I'm happy I got around to that. Yes. Okay. So so here we are. Everyone should be thanking Kaylee, or else I wouldn't have showed it. I would have been like, all right, back to work, I guess. So one of the ones I'm doing is Daredevil. and it's got to be the armored suit. So I'm guessing that's the show suit. I'm guessing. Like, what other armored suit? I'm gonna Google armored suit and see and be like, oh, that's the '90s one, or I'm assuming it's the show, which will be fun. So I kind of got him like that. Um, I probably would put some battle damage, but I got to remember it's the armored suit, so maybe not. Maybe I'll put battle damage on the other one. I have to do one where he's fighting Bullseye, so it's Daredevil versus Bullseye, and I kind of want his knuckles all bloody, like he beating the shit out of him, and he's just smiling with his like bloody lip, like. And then with this one, he's kind of taunting him. I did it like a headshot here, where he's holding a sigh that's probably Elektra's sigh. So he's kind of got a little smirk, kind of a little tease, little jab at Daredevil and the audience. So here we have Invincible. So I have to do a cover with Battle Beast. And so here was my first draft. I felt like it was missing something. It felt, and then I'm doing this one. I kind of like this pose a little bit better. This kind of a Kubrick stare, kind of turned down. We'll see how much of the mace I can fit, and I'll have blood on the mace and maybe on his mouth as well. And here's another one for Image Comics. I forgot this guy's name, but I had to draw him as well. And I think we'll do like a close up on that kind of deformed face of his, his big brain. Man, I forgot his name. Do we have any Invincible fans? There are Invincible fans everywhere. I always hear people talking about Invincible. So I still need to finish the show. I'm on season 2. Image, yeah. And Invincible's eye is like the image eye. So yeah, I just did that. Normally, I just write like the initials. The initials? The shoot, the acronym. My brain is farting. And then the rest are all my Red Sonja ones. So here's gonna be one Red Sonja one. And I wanted to capture the energy and power. And then for this one, I also just threw in a hand in here, so somebody's gonna get it. It's like right before you get whipped with the belt. That's like the POV. Here's another one capturing kind of the energy. Maybe I'll put some stuff in the background when it's actually on the paper and I have a little more idea what's gonna look like probably. Here's another one. I added some like swords in the ground, and I borrowed the idea of swords in the ground from one of my own cards that I didn't show you yet. I drew it yesterday at work. Maybe I'll show it to you if I feel nice, or if anyone wants to see it, I'll show those too. And then here's another one. I have her kind of fighting a big snake here, and I think this kind of leans more into that kind of swords and sorcery kind of vibe, that dark fantasy that I kind of wanted to get. And so I think that will be very fun to do. For this one, I kind of have like a skeleton undead soldier kind of thing coming at her. And then here for the red covers, that's the pencils you just saw me showing, where I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? I'm going to have to play with shadows and stuff like that. Even the shadows, even the black ink is hard to see on those covers. So I'm really hoping the acrylic markers pop out. Who knows? I might need to use the black acrylic. Maybe that could work. I have no idea. At this point, I'm painting. But we'll see. So I designed all these other ones of the Red Sonja covers to facilitate actually showing the character through this hellish red cover that I, I don't know. We'll see. Here's one. Trying to think what parts I'll pop out, and I'll be much more simple with the shape. She'll have like her brown gloves that should be easy to kind of pop off. Maybe a little bit of thigh action in here. Maybe the rest is in shadow, and then I'll probably take a bottle of ink and kind of put a shadow around her that's kind of popping in and out of the shadows. Maybe her face will be shadowed. Definitely not going to be able to put details on that face. Um, kind of thinking of my light sources. Maybe her shoulder could be popping off over there. Maybe this one. This one looks a little rough, but we'll see how it comes out. But I kind of did it real quick. So the hands are not all that well drawn there, but it's a thumbnail sketch. But I was like, maybe she could be sitting or something, have her hands resting on her sword, and we could see some of the, be in shadow, and we could probably like see her eye in the distance. I don't know. We'll see how that works when I actually get to work on it. Here's another one where I'm trying to be a little more ambitious, where I'm like, you know what? Maybe I could do an eye. I could probably do an eye and be dramatic with that. Maybe have a sword, maybe some blood on the sword. And I'm thinking to myself, I have pushed myself beyond limits in the past before in my college classes and my art classes, in high school and college. So I was like, let me kind of imagine that I'm in an art class and I have to do this as an assignment. So that's kind of how I'm treating it, trying to push myself. Here's another one. Again, we're gonna lose a lot of these stray pencil marks, which is giving me some definition of depth, which looks nice, but it will be very flat depending on how these markers go. I've never really done something to this degree with acrylic markers. Here's another one, kind of playing in with the popping in and out. I might give her a face, but my draft didn't fit the face. I might, but I kind of like it like this too, because it kind of feels almost like a Greek statue, where the arms and legs break off and stuff like Nike or something. Here's another one where I'm thinking of just getting the side of her face, and then I'll probably use orange on the hair, so orange and red might pop out. The silver or white, I gotta see what markers I got for the sword can pop out. Maybe I'll put a little blood on that. Uh, Probably a more back view because I'm thinking I can't really work on the faces on these. So I can have her hair kind of covering her face so I don't have to worry about drawing her face. And then I could work on the forms of her body and, um, you know, hopefully that works. I'm wondering how I will be able to shade with those or if I even have enough or markers and shades of markers to add some, gradient or anything like that. Hello, Dave. Your drafts look badass. The actual comics will be mind blowing. Excuse me. Thank you. Although, as I was saying, they're not gonna have all these stray lines, which I think are giving the draft some energy here because you kind of give it more of a, energetic kind of kinetic feel. But you know, they'll probably be more flat. I don't know if my pens can work on after I put down some acrylic paint from the markers. I don't know if my ink will sit on top of that. Then there'll be a whole nother animal because then I can add a little cross hatching onto that. Sticking with the idea of back views and trying to bulk out the cover, I gave her a cape here. And so I can probably lean on that with her cape. I'll probably add some fur to the cape up here where maybe that could be like her hair, her fur, and then her cape. So hopefully that would look cool. Kind of something like a cape can, it's covering a lot of anatomy, but maybe I can make it interesting by having it like flowing and stuff like that. And people like the way I draw capes. Capes are one of my specialties, so I'm like maybe I could show off my cape here. And again, I'm got to bulk out like 10 of these on these red covers, so I'm like doing everything I can to kind of, I have to do all of them in like 4 weeks. So that's a lot of work. I have 20 covers in total to do, and I still have to work on finishing 20 more of the sketch cards where I already finished 10 of them. And here's one more. I don't know if I'll try to draw like her figure. Again, I covered her mouth with her hair here, like little things with fine details I might cover. I might play around with some shadows even more so. I don't know. I'm kind of leaving this one open. If I have time, maybe I could put more time into it and really try to do a detailed one. That's me hoping and me trying. But those covers, as I'm showing, it's near impossible. It's so difficult. I did a Batman Deadpool cover on a blue cover, and that was me personally. I wasn't too happy with how it turned out. I liked how my line work looked, I liked the drawing, but on, like, the way I was coloring it and I was trying, I was using, like this time I was also using color pencils, Prismacolor pencils, and a mixed media with, like, um, alcohol markers. I was trying everything that would work, and I still felt like it was too dark to see. So I'm hoping that the acrylic markers will be much more vibrant. That's all I want. I just want it to be vibrant. I don't care if it looks flat. I just want it to look vibrant. Because, I'm imagining if someone wants to display this or frame it, that's how I treat it. As an artist, you're making artwork. If you're selling artwork, it's the age old thing or museum pieces. If what do you do with artwork? Do you put it in an envelope? Do you put it in a binder? No. If you have a valued piece of artwork, you'd frame it or you put it up or something. And so I'm not saying everyone who, you know, opens up a blind bag or auctions, those covers or buys a commission off me or whatever. Uh, I'm not saying that they have to put it on a wall. I'm not expecting them to put it on frame or anything. But as an artist, work with the intent of it being a frameable piece. Basically what I'm saying is push yourself to your absolute limit. You want to be the best. You want to be like a renaissance man in that sense. Uh I imagine Leonardo da Vinci and these other renaissance guys, they were pushing themselves to for someone to be like, "Whoa, that's amazing." Not just chasing a buck, a job. I've had a very busy week. Some things were more fun than others. Um, I'm more I judge, my days by my progress and what I get done, and that's how I value my days. So, I will say I am pretty happy. I do have more, cards I have 2 more cards if you guys wanna see that early, penciled in. Um, I still have to finish also some cards for the Patreon for we have now 3 members on Patreon, so I'm happy about that. Um and an extra card added to the Patreon list. And thank you, Kaylee. Do you have any sea monsters? I do have a bunch of sea monsters I recently added a couple months ago. Um, I do want to in the future maybe do like another set of cards that would have like a bunch of creatures and stuff like that. I'm not sure if I want that to be like bio cards that'll like talk about, you know, the creature and the biology of the creature, and those will be like vertical cards, or if I should do those like horizontal, like these that have like a scene, but those won't be numbered, um, like these ones will be. Let's zoom out a little. New creature designs that I can show. Uh, what do I consider not really spoilery? um, I'm trying to think. I'm just looking at my book. I think everything's kind of spoilery when it comes to like a creature, because then you see it and it's like it loses the shock value. I also don't know what everyone's seen so far. A little enemy to a dragon. What do you mean, an enemy to a dragon? Like, what do you mean by that? Like, you know, like monster versus monster. Oh, okay. Uh, well, dragons specifically in my story are kind of like the top of the top. So if anything, it would be like another dragon that's giving them a problem. um, but yeah, definitely creatures can fight amongst each other. That would be an interesting thing to have. That could be an interesting one. I'm trying to think off the top of my head if I have it. I like draw like hundreds. At this point, I don't know how many I've made. I was trying to limit myself when I was first working on this series because I was like, oh, it's got to be a shorter series. You know, let's not make it too big. You know, I already learned from Dead Liberty it takes forever to do a comic, and then now with the cards, I'm like, I could just like introduce creatures through cards. So I'm just like whatever I want to make. Like the floodgates have just been like let out. Like I'm just going crazy designing all the things that kind of come to my mind. And also I feel like the series got a lot bigger and because I had designed a timeline of events. So there is history, there is lore. When you see something like an abandoned castle or whatever, like there's lore to it, and I've designed a whole bunch of that stuff. And so with the cards, I was like, what if we kind of use the cards as a way to kind of see some of this stuff, you know, in its glory, see some of like the outdate the I don't want to say obsolete, but like the outdated armor and stuff like that. So like something like this, you'd see like these guys' armors like in display in like the castles and stuff like that. I think that would be pretty cool. The passing of time and a bunch of these things where they were more like lore points for myself, and maybe it'd get explained or shown in a flashback or something. Now we actually are active participants in the event, in the history. So if you don't read these cards and you just jump into the comic whenever that happens, it's not going to break the story or anything, but it adds context that the people who read the cards would be like, oh, I was there. Like, I remember that. there was a monster that their entire species fights dragons. Hello, Liam. Yeah, I mean, well, again, specifically dragons. We have dragons in this series, and then we have draconic beasts. And, those kind of act more like animals in a sense, like those would include wyverns, drakes, and other type of, dragon-like creatures. Also, I changed the name of the thing that I was calling a tasselworm. I changed the name of it. I'm now calling it something else. Let me see what I wrote. I still have to memorize this new name. What did I call it? Um, and I'll show you the original sketch of it, the original design. So I'm calling it a guiver. So I was calling it a tasselworm, but I feel like a tasselworm, if I'm going more towards the lore of and towards the mythologies of a tasselworm, tasselworms typically are more like snake-like with front arms and like a cat face. And I was like, you know what? I feel like that name doesn't really fit for me with this creature, So I after all these years, I changed it. And what's funny too is, I always felt like the name. I was like, does it feel like a good name? But right when I started to get used to it, I'd like, you know what? Last minute change it. Luckily, I changed it before I went printing the cards and stuff. So I'm very glad I remembered to make that announcement here on YouTube. But it's called the Guiver. And so this is a draconic beast. It looks like a dino and a dragon had a baby. Yeah, because there is also some relation for the dragons and you know, dinosaurs and stuff like that. But that's like a whole lore thing that we may not get into. uh, as for showing a new creature, it's not so much new, but here's a better look at it. I don't know if I've ever showed it on my sketches, my original sketch for it, but I have shown it on my proof of concept with the lizard people in the shrine, but that it was like this big. So here you technically it's a new design for you guys. Here's the drake. So this is what the drakes look like. And you might see the lizard people could probably ride these things as well as the Guiver that I was showing. Lizard. So basically, people praise the dragons like gods. Basically, the lizard people. Okay, the lizard people praise the dragons like gods. Yeah, like they they are descendants of the dragons. They were made of their blood, and so they are very they admire the dragons and that whole thing with them. They kind of seen them as very mystical and like the ultimate life form. And I'll show the other two cards. I can show it at the end of the live, or I can show it now. It's up to you guys if whatever you want to see. They do rituals for them like blood ones. I think that would be more like it would depend on the specific region of lizard people at that point, and probably which dragon they're probably kind of worshiping. Yes, those are cooler days. Um, I definitely have, like if you're talking about, like, blood ritual specifically, I definitely have, like, sacrifice stuff, cult stuff, but, you know, it depends on who we're talking about, what we're talking about, and also if I'm worried about spoiling too much. Okay, I don't want spoilers. Okay, okay. And yeah, I feel like the best way to kind of, you know, go interact with any kind of story, not just mine, or without spoilers, but especially mine. I feel like with my comics, there's a benefit to me being like an underground artist that nobody knows. If you go to see a Spider-Man movie, if you go to see, uh, basically anything that's big, you've already got it spoiled for you. Whether you've seen clips on TikTok, it's a bunch of it, and you're like, okay, fine, I'll check it out. It looks cool. Or, all the trailers or people talking about it or your friends building hype, everything has kind of been spoiled to a degree that you can't go in fully blind. And for me, when I was working on the Nadir series, and that being a free to read series, I was very fortunate to have the benefit to kind of watch in real time people's reactions to the scenes. And not just the stories, but the scenes themselves, because I'd post them every 5 pages or so I completed. And I'd see people talking amongst each other and even with the Discord in the discourse channel, talking amongst each other what they thought was going to happen next or what they thought different things in the background meant. And I was very grateful to one of the pros to my stuff being kind of small. I got to see that in real time. Also, I had always said that it was like in the same universe for the Nadir series, but the way I kind of left things out, like I made it sound like things would not continue, and I tied different things together. So seeing people realize that, and be like, oh shit, this this is the that dude from the other comic or whatever. I loved seeing that. Is that Gamork? No, this is a warg. But this is my own dark fantasy series. This is gonna be a card set, and it's gonna be scaled down to trading card size, and then the back is gonna have a story on the back, and it's gonna be numbered 1 through 55 and tell a story. I will make a comic series of this at some point, but I'm juggling already a bunch of other comics and projects at the time. But who knows? Maybe if this got really big and went viral, then sure, of course, I'll jump right into the comic. I'll be like, you know what, we gotta catch that while it's hot. What is Gmork? What's that from? Welcome back, Amari. What is the reference? What do you mean? What is the reference? What reference? When you said something about not. Have you gotten to finish reading Nadir Archives? Because now I kind of like I don't want to act to spoil it for someone actively reading it either. Attack of the Clones when he told Padme that he did. What he did. I forgot. Mork appears at the end of the film in the crumbling spook city. I've never heard of crumbling spook city. In the crumbling spook city. Atreyu. Oh, the never-ending story. That's who I thought you were talking about. That wolf thing in the never-ending story. I recently rewatched the never-ending story. I saw that years ago, and I didn't remember anything about it. And then I recently rewatched it. I didn't see the second one or any of the others. I could definitely see how it would remind you of that. They're both like black wolves. I plan to give mine red eyes. A little exclusive. Some of the inspiration for my big wolf basically came from a Dio album cover where there was like these wolves. I thought that was pretty cool. The Dio albums have some cool art. But the story of how I ended up adding this wolf into my story, I I added it pretty recently as far as like this type of creature because of I feel like I always say when you're making a story, sometimes it writes itself, or the world building opens up opportunities for other things. I had designed a different creature, and then I was like thinking about where its origins could come from, and then basically I designed this creature to kind of serve kind of as like you know uh, something of a predecessor that would allow for the creation of these other creatures that I plan on including, which was fun too because I wanted to have this kind of like snarling beast. It also breaks up, the reptilian theme of like dragons and stuff like that. As much as I love, reptilian creatures and dragons and stuff like that, I think it is some good diversity. Uh, Here are some of the finished cards. So this is King Solomon of the Kingdom of Vimor. And here are some of his knights, a knight order called the King's Goosehawk. They kind of serve as like the backbone and the muscle of the Kingdom of Vimor. And then here is a Vimor Lancer. And he's taken out a dwarf dragon. And these will be colored. These are the soldiers of faith. So they are a knight order of holy knights in the Kingdom of Vimor that are also following the anointed king, King Solomon. And they're on this kind of like this religious crusade to lay the remaining dragons. These are knights from another kingdom called Griffindom. And these are another knight order within that kingdom called the Holy White Knights. So that's holy knights that reside in the Kingdom of Gryffindor, and these are the Watchful Blue Knights order within the uh, the Kingdom of Gryffindor. So this is like a joint operation. I kind of put both of them in this card here, and that is a Guiver, which is a draconic beast. And here are some knights of another kingdom called Haicuria, and they are encountering a warg. And thank you, Handel. Yes, I will be coloring them. They will be scaled down to trading card size, so 2.5 by 3.5. And on the back of the card, it's going to tell a story. It's going to be numbered 1 through 55, telling a complete story. And they will be sold, in like little blind bag kind of things, like booster packs, like trading cards. And as far as getting around, the whole thing with cards being like, I don't want to profit off of any kind of like gambling kind of thing as far as, I gotta get card number two. You know what I mean? My what I'm planning to do is on our Discord, we have a graveyard discourse channel. And when I drop the cards, I will be happy for people to talk amongst each other. So if you got cards 2, 3, and 4, and someone else has card 1, 5, and 6, it encourages people to talk amongst each other and say, like, okay, I got these cards. What'd you get for that? Kind of like this puzzle piece. I kind of almost want to make it this impression of um, like an archaeologist kind of putting the story together. Um, and you know, as far as that goes, I don't want to spoil my own story, but I'm totally fine with you guys spoiling it for each other for the card set. Um, and also, as far as owning artwork goes, will offer prints. So that way, again, you don't have to be like, oh, I got to buy these cards. I got sinking money in these cards. And the prints will be a 1-to-1 scale. So you'll be able to have more view of the details and stuff like that. So it'll be this 5 by 7 here. And so, if you just want to own art, like a piece of artwork or whatever, and you don't want to have to like keep trying buying card after card, um, that's my answer to that. So that's how I can sleep at night without feeling like I'm profiting off of gambling. Um, but I will have fun with it as far as I will put in some inserts in some of the cards that will be pretty cool. So I'm thinking of doing like a metal card or a sketch card that will be like hand drawn, like a one, just a card that I've done myself. Um, and what else? Sticker cards, magnet cards. I think those will be some pretty cool little chase cards for anyone, who are doing that. I think that's exciting. It's fun. Okay, let me keep reading. I like the bird on the guidon. Guidon? Is that what the flag thing, the proper term for the flag? Those are doves that you've been seeing in some of those cards. The doves do have some significance as far as symbolism goes, but I will leave that to the readers to kind of figure out. I again, and with all the works I do, I try to be cryptic in a way that I put some either symbolism or hide things in the background or foreshadowing or alluding to things. Definitely, I take a lot of religious allegory. As far as that, it's like really intertwined into the DNA of my work. As far as you know, s- some of maybe themes, but also the world itself. I don't know if I'm making sense. Okay. Yeah, I don't really color my drawings typically, but for the card sets, I will. Um, yeah. Okay, okay. Take a picture of your knights so I could take notes on how to draw my own. Yes. Uh, you can also Another thing I should mention, if you're doing studies of my knights and stuff like that, if like you want to redraw my knights and stuff, um, I welcome fan art, and I have a whole section on the graveyard discourse. I mean, the graveyard Discord in the fan art channel. Fan art goes in there along with whatever accounts you would like me to credit, because then I will then post it on the Graveyard Comics Facebook page and the Graveyard Comics Instagram. And also for some comic fan art stuff, depending on the book I'm working on, I will be open to feature fan art in the books, the printed books, as I have in the past for the Dead Liberty books. Um, but I would let people know when I'm doing something like that. I also have a free to read comic series on the Graveyard Comics Facebook page and my TikTok. That's called Nadir Archives. That's a different timeline, different universe. So that is very sci-fi. So that's not medieval. Ridley Scott added a bird in the scene before the battle scene in Gladiator. I still need to watch Gladiator. He asked Russell Crowe if he could look over at the bird. It was an interesting scene. I'll have to keep an eye out for that. I gotta watch it then. Moving over to a 010 so I can have a larger pen line width here, as this guy is closer to the foreground than us, than that other guy was working on. Dave, if you want some advice as well, I would say what would be more helpful to you than drawing my knights, as far as understanding how knight armor works and stuff like that, is watch someone putting on knight armor. Watch the different components, because there's a lot of things that are like layering and stuff like that. And you gotta, understand how the knight can move, what bends, the articulation in some of, the gauntlets, or, the shoulders and stuff like that. It's very intricate, very complex, and very impressive. There's a lot of flexibility that a knight possesses due to the craftsmanship of their armor. And also, a side note as far as my knights go, each kingdom, I kind of approach their armor in a different way, as far as like, you know, for example, the Knights of Haicuria, I often give them plumes, which are these big feather things. But aside from just plumes, as that's the most notable difference between them, I oftentimes will have them have asymmetrical shoulder pauldrons. So their left pauldron is oftentimes larger, kind of breaking up their silhouette, and also kind of giving them more like clunkier armor in areas. While the Knights of Griffindom, I try to have them feel more like Gothic, medieval, like German Gothic, and give their armor like extra details like fluting and stuff like that. Um, so I kind of designed the knight armor that each kingdom kind of has their own cultural and technical kind of preferences to the design and style of their armors. And hopefully, maybe you can tell them apart. If you can tell the different knights apart from each kingdom by how they look, then I did a good job, and I'm happy about that. But you would also have a good eye. One of the other things I do is I understand that a helmet oftentimes acts as a face, and that's what people will recognize even more than some of the other silhouette elements. And so, for the most part, I try to give them like a different helmet type to a degree. That's kind of like the face of their army. Although in real life, it was more like an arms race, whatever knight armor was effective, like everyone had their own kind of version of it. For example, the beaky helmet, as I like to call it, of the pig face bassinets or the hound skull bassinets. What was cool about them having like these beaks was if you try to hit a cone like face with a sword head on, your sword's going to slide off of it, which was great. They don't get stabbed in the face. And so everyone started doing that for, you had French armor doing it, you had English, kingdoms using it. So, one of the main ways they would tell them apart, despite, some slight changes to, the smithing of the armor, was more so things like the coat of arms and flags and, their heraldry on their shields and stuff like that. And you could have colorful, you know coats and surcoats and things like that, because it's not like you were going to get sniped by a 50 caliber round across like miles away. So it was okay to be colorful and have your form and tactics and stuff like that. You were also heavily armored, depending on if you were a noble or not. But yeah, so that's another thing as far as like colors. You can keep in mind colors for your kingdom, and the kingdom's colors. Yes, yes, of course. And again, if you are using it, here's the thing. If you're drawing the design and you're coming up with your own poses, that's fan art. If you're redrawing the same drawing, that's called a study. And you could do that. But for that, you definitely want to credit whatever the original art was. So in my case, like if you're redrawing this exact same pose, then you would say night study of Jake Grave art. And ideally for me, I ask that people tag me in it because it helps direct people, let people know I exist. Um, and also you get a free like because I'm gonna like it. I'm like, oh, this guy drew my drawing. Here's a like. um, but also I'd even go as far as probably share some of them on the fan arts and stuff like that. I'd say you could post it in our fan art, and you know, I think it's symbiotic. I really appreciate hearing that I'm your favorite, Dave. I won't let it get to my head, but I appreciate that. But yeah, here's the thing too. I know some people probably get a little touchy and insecure, but like, I don't see it as competition. I don't see someone else, improving as competition because they'll be making their own story and I'll be making my own story, as long as they're not stealing my designs. But even then, you know, if you're stealing someone's designs, you're only robbing yourself of making something cool that you can be proud of. You can be inspired by someone. You can be inspired by something and make your own version, without straight up stealing it. I don't know. As far as when it comes to things like knight armor, um I would say straight up look at just real life knight armor because they already did all the hard stuff. Hundreds of years of, studying and trial and error is like, oh, why do they have curled edges? Well, because that stopped them from getting stabbed. If you're wondering, here the edge is kind of curled here. So if I run my sword here, it would stop at this raised area, so it gets stuck here. And that would hopefully deflect the sword from sliding off. If it wasn't there, it would just slide off into the armpit, which is a weak point, or in his throat. And so it's like, oh, I wonder how they thought of that. A couple people probably got stabbed in their armpit, you know. Um, so the people of medieval times already did all the hard part of form follows function. So now it's up for you, the artist, to design the the pizzazz, the flavor, the seasoning, and change things the way you want. Maybe put the breathing holes in a different way, or maybe you can add a crest, or design the shoulder pads a little bit different, but understand how it works, understand why it's there. Um, so that way it feels believable, practical, and not ridiculous. Think about how the character is going to get dressed. Who's dressing them? Are they doing it themselves? So maybe certain parts are already attached and they can quickly armor up. Or maybe they are just very intricate to the point where they'll have a squire dressing them. And I say think of this for anything, whether you're doing superheroes, war stories, how do these guys get ready for battle? Yes, I trust you. Yes, yes, and definitely share your art in the channels and stuff. In height. What do you mean in height? Taller cup. I'm not sure. Cups? What are we talking about cups? Where's the dark fantasy music? Can you hear any music? It appears that YouTube is muting my music on my lives. So for this one, I kind of looked up something that was like could be used on the lives, but I don't think you can hear this either. No. Okay, let me try one more. This one says safe for Twitch. So let's see it. Maybe it'll be safe for YouTube.
Morning. Hello. Instead of building new ways for machines to talk to people, enjoy. Chase is building new places.
Okay. I think I'm gonna bring this up a little bit for the male. Okay. Yeah, so we're getting muted. Yeah, for a long time. I'm wondering if maybe they were like, "This guy keeps doing it, let's take it away from him." I was hesitant about this scene because I was like, "Oh man, this scene is about the Knights of Haicuria, not so much the warg. It's kind of just there." Although I did write about it in the card. Um, but I was like, "Oh, we have our backs. They have their backs turned to us," and I'm like, "Oh, hopefully it's enough that people can see what they look like." Um, I'm sure we'll see them again later in the set, but for their first introduction, I'm like, would it be okay? And then I'm thinking to myself, it doesn't mind. It doesn't matter too much because if this is a card set and you open up the set of cards, you might get. Let's say we do see them again in card 40, right? You might get that card before this one. Hell, you might never even get this one. Go back to 0, 10 for this one, just because it's clearly in front. I gotta keep an eye on my battery too, so it doesn't die on me. In the 2003 Clone Wars show, down. Hold on, let me read up. Do you remember those clone troopers, the jousting ones? Yeah, what were they called? The clone lancers. I know what you're talking about. The Lancer droids, yeah, the IG Lancers. Those were led by Dirge. But they just look like regular clones. Who, Dirge? You That's who you're saying you liked? Yeah, Dirge is one of my favorites. Yeah, they severely underused Dirge. What a waste. It's criminal. Instead of Cad Bane, I think that's okay. Yeah, Cad Bane. Put the other guy, Dirge, Durge. Yeah, Dirge was way cooler. Put my 010 away, since we're not going to have anything to work on at the size. I'll read the chat in a second. Let me just get these little shadows under here. The cool part is that he can basically eat the people. Yeah, you mean like wrap around them? That would be like last minute like defense. Last line of defense, I mean. Like he would have to get blown up. But like his whole suit is like a weapon. Like he had flamethrowers, he had like spike balls, he had like gun wrists, laser wrist. He had like dual pistols. He had like lightsaber shield things, jetpacks. And then like if you cut off his arm, he could like make his arm as it's regenerating into like claws. I had one of the comics from the what was it? Legends? No, Republic. Which is Legends, but Republic line of comics. And he appeared in that and I was like, okay, at least I had and he fought Anakin, which was really cool. At least I had some kind of closure with his character. Yeah, he is a really cool bounty hunter. Lots of fan art of him versus some ARC troopers. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, he did fight ARC troopers as well. We also didn't get Captain Fordo. And yes, they did nerf General Grievous. We didn't get like any reference to Captain Fordo either. And apparently, Arc Trooper Alpha was supposed to be Rex, but I think it was George Lucas. He didn't. He wanted to rename him and like change his character so that way they didn't have too many A's. Anakin, Ahsoka, Alpha. But this makes me think too. The age-old question that I always had. I don't know if anyone else ever did. Is Captain Rex an ARC trooper? I've seen people like fighting over this. Some people are like, no, he just has access to that gear because he's a captain, like he's an officer. And then other people are like, no, he's clearly ARC trooper armor. It is clearly like ARC trooper armor. And they said he was trained by ARC Trooper Alpha. For the longest time, I thought that meant that, it was like an ARC Trooper training academy. I didn't know ARC Trooper Alpha was like an actual individual human, an actual ARC Trooper. He was one of the Null ARC Troopers. Or is that what they're called? The Null ones? I think that was like the original ARC Troopers. That were like clones of Django and trained by Django. Well, obviously they're clones of Django, but they're trained by Django. Um, and ARC Trooper Alpha Academy trained all those like great ARC Trooper commanders like Commander Cody, Rex, uh, Bakura, and Neo. I'm pretty sure Commander Gree. Like I think it was like all the Revenge of the Sith like guys. Originally, or early in the war, the colors of the clone troopers were for the ranking, um, designations. But then it became like by battalion, designation. So red was for captain, like Captain Fordo was red, and blue was lieutenant. But Rex is a captain, but he has blue because he's part of the 501st. But he also got uh the Jag eyes, which is that thing on his helmet that's painted. And we saw Captain Fordo had that in his phase 2 armor, which looked like what kind of helmet was that? The same one Neo had, or a version similar to it. The Bark helmet. And basically, if you look at the Bark troopers, I think it is, I forgot what the B stands for, but it stands for the ARC is still ARC Trooper. The same thing ARC Trooper stands for. Advanced Recon Commando. I think the B stand for biker, advanced recon commander. I don't know, but the Bark speeder bikes, then which were made for them, makes you think, oh, so maybe the Barks were ARC troopers, and we did see Captain Fordo have that helmet, and Captain Fordo didn't have his commas anymore, which is like the the skirt, the belt cape. I wish he still had that. He looked so cool. He looked so naked when he had this phase 2 armor without it. Um, so yeah, and that was a little segue there. But what was I talking about? um, oh yeah, so he had that, and also that was originally on Boba Fett in the concept art for some of the concept art for Boba Fett, and then this other guy in the old Marvel comics, his name was Fen Scheiser, I think. I don't know if I'm saying his name right, but he and this other guy and Boba Fett were like supposed to be like the last 3 Mandalorians or something like that. But those were like old comics. Bakura was his armor was designed from concept art of the Heavy, which if you played the original Battlefront 2 game, that's what the Heavy armor looked like. But his being like red and stuff was more personalized to him and his uh Nova Corps, I think was the Galactic Marines. Um so Commander Bakura had like this maroonish reddish color. Commander Gree was um wearing like the green camo with Yoda. Commander Gree was part of Illuminara's battalion, or rather, was it? Pretty sure it was battalion or something else. I forgot what it was called now. Corpse. No, I think it was a battalion, and then he had the corpse, the 41st. I don't remember. Numbers kill me. And also present there in the comics was Commander Fay, and he was just wearing like regular biker armor, or Kashyyyk armor, or whatever you want to call it, the recon scout armor. Um, and he was part of Quinlan Voss's team, and they hated each other. The first time I ever saw Commander Fay, though, he had the armor that looked like the engineer armor that you would see in Star Wars Battlefront 2, the original. But his also had like a cape kind of thing, like a surcoat with a hood. And I thought he was like so cool. I thought he was like that was the most unique armor I've seen. I was like, whoa, it's looking like almost a stormtrooper at that point. The beginning of the war, when no one was in a battalion. Uh so green in the beginning of the war was corporal, if I'm not mistaken. And yellow was commander. And red was officer. No, red was captain. My bad. I said that before too. Red was captain. I remember when I was a kid, I'd just be sitting there reading Wikipedia. I used to think to myself, wow, I could read this for like hours, but like, certain school things I didn't feel like reading. But back then, I was still okay with reading. It wasn't until I became like invested in like being a comic artist that I kind of like had trouble like really sitting down and reading anymore, because I'm like, I need to be drawing. Yeah, I liked reading. I also liked audiobooks too as a kid. I guess I still like them now. I could listen to that while I draw. I hate when I spent like all that time reading just to find out some of the stuff is like, oh, that's not canon no more. That's legends, bro. That's why I love Dave Filoni. He saved so much of the canon. What are those stuff you see in Attack of the Clones with the big gunner stuff that they use when they got that one ship from the going in space? Are you talking about the Techno Union ship or that big round ship? I think the round ship was part of the banking clan. If you're talking about the walkers, those are the ATTEs, which are and then there's also those just big gun things. Those might just be turrets. That one that stops the ship from going to sea. It's probably a turret. I don't know the name of the turrets. I know some of the vehicles, but not the turrets. I like having their surcoats kind of like loose over their armor. That's all right. I was drawing while yapping. I also do love Star Wars, even if they've been pretty rocky lately. But definitely the OG stuff. It's like years of my life that I was a fan of Star Wars and invested a lot of time into the lore and watching videos and playing the games and stuff. So it's good to activate that knowledge and see it's still good for something. And something like Star Wars, Star Wars is kind of like an OG fandom for me. Um, that I was like really into as a kid, like formative development of as a kid. So some of this stuff just comes back to me like, even though I'm rusty, some of it just comes back and I'm like, wow, I can't believe I still remember that. I'm gonna be like, I'm gonna be in an old person home. What's that called? I'll be like, good soldiers follow orders. They'll be like, okay, grandpa, it's time to go to bed. Be like, you can't take me. The chancellor's behind me. Start going crazy. Goodbye, Kaylee. Thank you for dropping by. We'll probably be ending soon too. My battery's like dying. I gotta check that too. And I think we got a good amount of progress here as far as like some of the main line work on the outline there. Um, and some of the shadows starting to make it feel a little more uh rendered. And then off the live, I could get in like little details and stuff. But we're kind of getting an idea of how this will look. Here I'm also putting in some shadows in the rendering, and that was one thing I was really kind of wanting to get to. Really playing with the light source here and how that's going to affect my shadows. Um, as a good example of that, when I talk about like my cross hatching and stuff, I don't just put it anywhere. If I have a direct light source, I have to make sure I can't just put my shadows here. So I have to leave this area open because of the light. So I can put my shadows down here as it wraps around his shoulder, but I have to leave this area open. I can think about cast shadows. Since that area is raised, it's going to block some of the light coming down here. Since this is metal, it will also like reflect a little bit. So if, when I color it, I might add a little bit of yellow on the edge of his armor here. I could put some shadow under here though, because this like cone-like shape of the gauntlet is covering it. I was just checking my battery. I do have to get going. Let's get some of the shadow in here first. So I can put some shadow around here on the back side furthest from the light source. And it's kind of curving around. Cast shadow under the helm or the bassinet. Cast shadow on the raised area of the visor. Yeah, I think so. So we'll have a little cast shadow on this part here. Okay. I think we'll stop here. Yeah. So you can start saying your last words. I think we're wrapping up. Uh Hopefully I'll have this done by the next live. We shall see, depending on work, Dynamite Comics, and other things going on. We'll see. I'd put my goodbye music, but you guys can't hear it anyway. And it's just one person. It's just you, Dave. All right. So with that, we will just start to say goodbye. So get your last words in. I'll take a sip of water real quick. Execute order 66. Will be done, my lord. All right. So I will talk as if more people are joining or have been here, the ghosts of the people who were here, and also anyone who watches this video as it's been posted and somehow makes it to the end. I just want to say thank you so much for watching the videos. As always, hanging out, talking. It's been fun. Good night, Dave. And yeah, so keep working on things that you like to do. Dave, practice your drawings, your knight armors, your monsters, the things you were mentioning. So that'll be cool. Yes. All right. So with that, keep working on the things that you like to do. Make it because it doesn't exist, and do it because you love it. Enjoy the rest of your night, and good night, Specters.